Welcome to this video. In this video, we will be looking at how to secure a hardware intern in NVIDIA and the steps that are involved in securing the same. So, talking about what we will be covering in this video, we will be looking at the process. With respect to NVIDIA, the on campus and off campus processes aren't that different. So, we will be covering both the bases there. Next, we will be looking into the eligibility and what is required to be able to sit for these internships. Later, we will be visiting the preparation strategies and a little bit of insights into the online test and the interview pattern. So, talking about NVIDIA, so the company NVIDIA is mainly known for the graphic processing units that it creates. So, NVIDIA is known to be powering a lot of games that we are seeing in real life right now. It is also diving into the CPU space and also the data space. So, right. Talking about the eligibility and the internship details, first we'll look at the two main criteria that constitutes for the eligibility. The first one is obviously the CGPA, which would be 8.5 plus for Tier 1 colleges like NITs and IITs, and for the Tier 2 colleges it would be 9 plus, and in some Tier 2 or Tier 3 colleges they even have a cutoff of 9.5 plus depending on how your peers score. Talking about the eligible streams, again, ECE, EEE, or ICE, or E&I, depending on what your college calls it, basically instrumentation and electronics. So, since this is an hardware role, usually they would look for electronics majors, so they just usually hire people from ECE, EEE, or E&I. The stipend is quite hefty, it's 50k per month, and the accommodation and food are provided as well. You would be posted in Bangalore or Hyderabad, and you would be having ASIC designing, verification, or the hiring process usually involves an online test that constitutes of digital electronics, aptitude, and coding rounds. Coming, to the online test, I'll be elaborating it in detail in the next slide. So, the Techno HR interview. So, this interview is basically 3/4 technical and 1/4 HR. The technical interview will be covering a lot of various digital topics, and it really depends on your manager. But I'll be going through how my interview went for this particular role, and I'll be giving you some insights based on that. And the HR round is more of a managerial round. The manager will kind of see how you fit into the company and the team that he's hiring for. So, talking about the online test, there were two major divisions: digital coding, and the third one was the aptitude division. Talking about the aptitude division, I would say that just prepare the basics. A lot of CAT preparation materials would do. Aptitude needs to be given due diligence and due importance, but at the same time, aptitude shouldn't take up a lot of time during a preparation, since you're preparing for a VLSI role. Talking about the digital, the main focus was on finite state machines. A lot of questions were based on Mealy and Moore circuits. The next most important topic, I would say, was computer architecture. Computer architecture, I basically mean the cache concepts that you are required to know, and the FIFO depth problems that were making up a majority of the questions in the online test. Digital logic, again, it's required to is expected from you to know that the basic digital electronics materials, and just cover up some of the faults and hazards problems, stuck at faults, stuck at 0, stuck at 1, and just look into the Verilog basics for the online test. There's another coding round which constitutes not another coding round, there's a coding section which constitutes to about 25 to 30% of the total test. So make sure you focus on loops, functions, and timing analysis. the complexity of the program, how the OAuth algorithms. So just to make sure you know your complexity of the programs, time complex. The interview really varies from person to person. Some people might have a completely digital interview, some people might have a little bit of analog, and some people might have a full of Verilog. So, my interview is what I'm going to be discussing here because it depends on manager and really varies from one interview to another. My interview started with a lot of digital puzzles. They were quite quirky. They aren't the normal kind of puzzles that you would expect in the interview. You needed to apply a different school of thought and then arrive at the answer they were expecting. My manager also asked some aptitude puzzles, some common sense puzzles, something to do with binary and the riddles kind of questions that you get to play with the binary language. So those kind of problems. A little bit of STA was expected, the basic theory and the underlying concepts, and what you would generally require to understand the timing of circuit. Most of my interview was based on Verilog. Verilog, as in he wanted to understand how I program muxes, how I program finite state machines, how I program flip flops, and basically a lot of different circuits. He just wanted to know my approach towards all of these. Again, I reiterate that this was a particular interview that my manager took, so it might not be the same for everyone. Finally, we spoke about some of the projects that I did and some of the prior interns that I did before giving this intern interview. And the next 15 minutes were mostly focusing on my career goals and where I see myself in 5 years, my game plan to work towards it. And finally, he wanted to know what kind of scenarios I've been in where I've been faced with a problem and how I solved it, and what kind of positions of responsibility I took at my university to exhibit leadership or to show responsibility. Quite frankly, the interview was very, very, very kind, very peaceful, I would say. The interview was, I wouldn't say a piece of cake. You needed to put in a lot of preparation and lot of effort prior to the interview for it to be easy. But I would say that the manager there made me feel very comfortable with the interview. So the 1 hour felt like 15 minutes, and it was again a very friendly encounter. So please do prepare